Okay, let's talk about some fun stuff. This is gonna be fun. You guys are gonna love this. President Trump ran on the fact that he was going to he's gonna make America great. Again. Again. Right? When President Obama ran the first time, what did he say? He ran on?
Change.
No.
Hope.
Hope and change. You can't just go with change. Change. Remember that South Park episode? The homeless people? Change. Yeah. Hope and change, right? Hope and change. When President Obama ran the second time, what did he run on? What was his little slogan?
Forward, right?
No, that was Hillary Clinton, forward.
Oh.
Remember? Forward. Anyway. With the little arrow. Also good, but not as good as Make America Great Again, apparently. What did he run on the second time? You probably don't remember, because it was just, damn it, he's in, he's doing good, sounds good.
Yes, we can.
Screw it. Yes, we can?
Was it?
No. He was going to I will make the rich pay their fair share. Making the rich pay their fair share.
I remember an argument he made on that. About, he mentioned Warren Buffett.
And what did he say about Warren Buffett?
I think pretty much it was that, pretty much he shouldn't pay the same amount of taxes that someone else pays.
He talked about Warren Buffett's secretary, didn't he?
Yes, there you go. Him and her.
He said that his secretary paid more taxes than he did, right? Brilliant argument. Because it's an absolute lie, but brilliant. And when I say an absolute lie, I mean the way I interpret it, because it's brilliant because it could be interpreted more than one way, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So let's use that as an example since you brought that up. Talk about Warren Buffett, which is a little different than Jimmy Buffett, for those who know Jimmy Buffett. There you go, baby. All right, most of you don't know. So, what do all these things have in common? These little slogans, these little
Battle cries.
battle cries, rallies, charge! What do they mean? Yes?
To me, it just means that it makes one group of people more rallied up, and then people that didn't support Trump were like, well, America was always great. So it kind of divided people in a way.
You think it divides people?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm thinking they're converting people, trying to convert people to their way of thinking so that they'll follow them and.
I think you're right. I don't think it's division. This one has, afterwards, people have claimed it was dividing. But it's not. How is this dividing? It's not really dividing. I mean, everyone, here's one of the common things that we all have, is the good old days. It doesn't matter how old you are, it's the good old days. Oh, when I was 8, those were the good old days. When I was 18, those were the good old days. When I was 28, those were the good old days. When I was 48, those were the good, whatever it is, we always remember the past as kind of cool and fun. And remember when we used to live in the Jones house, and it's a common thing that you have the good old days. Most people do, not everyone. You know, some people had a horrible existence until now, but most people look back and say, we had some good old days. And as our country is, most of us look back and we can look back and find good old days, right? So that's playing on that whole the good old days deal. Since then, people have tried to impute motive to it, right? Just like the wall. Well, what you mean is you want to put people back in chains, or whatever the argument is. Well, no, that's disingenuous, interpretation. But it can be interpreted in more than one way. That's probably the weakest of all of these. But they all have something in common. What is it? if, what?
They're giving people something to look forward to. Or
They're positive. These two are positive. But let's say you want to run in hope and change. Does anybody disagree with hope and change? No. Why?
It's not specified what's going to be changed.
That's right. Because everybody's hope and change is different. It's like holding up a mirror. You go, I have hope. I want things to change. Yeah. Yeah, he thinks just like me. He wants exactly what I want. He wants the same hope I have, and he wants the same change I want. That guy understands me because I have hope and I want things to change just like him. And we hold up a mirror and we look and we see, oh, I see myself. When I look at Obama, I see myself, and he's a damn good-looking man. Isn't that what we all saw with Obama? Yeah. With Trump, same idea. I want America to be great again. I want it to be wonderful and great. What does great mean? Everybody has their own definition of great. It doesn't matter because they then imputed onto Trump what they thought the good old days were about. And they said, he believes exactly what I believe. He wants the good old days just like I do. And they looked at Trump and they saw themselves reflecting back in a mirror. He believes the same thing I believe and wants the same thing I want. Because it says absolutely nothing. What does hope and change say? Absolutely nothing. It stands for nothing at all. What about this one? A little more specific, right? But here's the beauty of this one. Who disagrees with it?
I mean, I think it's as simple. It just says make the rich pay fair share. What is rich? There's different ones of rich.
Well, yeah, what is hope and what is change? What is great?
But I'm saying it's not specific as you're making it.
Are you saying it's more or less specific? You're saying it still is?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're saying what's rich, what's fair, what's change, what's hope, what's great, and what's again. All of these things have those things in common, absolutely. But so on this one, who disagrees with this? You disagree with it? Oh, I thought you meant, so you disagreed with making the rich pay their fair share. Why would you disagree with the rich paying their fair share?
Because it's socialism, and I'm not with it.
No, you're interpreting what you think he means by saying it. I'm asking you, do you believe rich people should pay their fair share of taxes? Yes. Does anybody believe rich people should not pay a fair amount of taxes? No. Would anybody say that rich people should not pay a fair amount of taxes? No. People say rich people. No. Do you think you're going to find a rich person and say, should you pay a fair amount in taxes? And they're going to go, no, I should pay an unfair amount in taxes. The rest of you should pay taxes in a fair amount, but I should pay an unfair amount. No, everyone thinks that they should pay a fair amount in taxes, right? That's the beauty of it. Everybody agrees. Even the rich, if they could be defined. The problem is, what's implied with this? What's the implied premise? What?
That they're going to pay more than
That they don't and they're going to pay more. Don't you hear both those things? I'm going to make the rich pay their fair share. You hear they're not paying their fair share now, and their fair share is going to be more. And then, not only that, but we even go one step further and we say, and that money's going to come to me somehow. Yeah, we'll get some more money somehow. Don't we kind of imply that or, hear that somehow? It's going to benefit us? No? All right. I think some people do. So, rich make the rich pay their fair share. Everybody would agree with it. This is why all these little slogans work. Because they mean whatever you want them to mean. You know why? Because those are all phrases that are vague. Here's the question. At the time President Obama said he's gonna make the rich pay their fair share. Who was the rich?
1%ers?
1%ers are rich. Sure. Would you say the top 5% were rich? Top 5% of top 5% are rich. Yeah, and that's how he defined it. They pushed him and said, what's rich? And he said, I don't want to talk about that. And they said, no, you can't say this crap and not tell me who's rich. Well, I don't want to talk about it. Come on now, okay, fine. Anybody over $250,000 a year is rich. Okay, well, that's the top 5%. How much do you think the top 5% was paying of all the money that went into the federal government in income taxes?
90, right?
2%.
10%? You think the top 5% were paying 10% of all taxes?
That's a two.
50.
Oh, 2%.
Yeah.
You think the top 5% equal 2% at the time? Well, actually, let's back up before we talk about this. What would a fair amount be? Because he says they should pay a fair share. What do you think the top 5% should pay of all the money that goes into the government? The top 5% should pay 5% of the money that goes into the government? They're rich sons of bitches. Shouldn't they pay more than that? We have graduated income tax. They should pay more. What percentage should they pay? Not percent of their income, but what percentage of the total money? The big pile of dough that the government gets. Of all the money they get it from certain people. What percentage of all this money should 5% be paying in there?
33%.
You think that a third of all the money that comes in there should be going from this, and then the rest, the 66%, should come from 95% of the other taxpayers should be paying 66%. You think that would be fair?
No.
Yeah, we have a yes and we have some no's. You think it should be high? Those that said no, higher or lower? Top 5% should pay higher? Your finger went up. Did your hand go up or did your finger go up?
I don't know. I was trying to figure it out.
What do you think? Higher or lower?
Lower.
You think higher. What percentage should the top 5% pay of all the money that comes in?
I think they paid 90, right? They
No,
overall.
I didn't say
Oh,
what do they pay. I said what's fair. What would a fair amount be, do you think? You really think 90% that they pay? No, they don't. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think
No, what's fair? That's what I'm asking.
5%.
You think 5% should pay 5%? Also, okay, so we have a 5%. 5%er should pay 5%. Who else? What do you think is fair? Anybody think more than the third? So then, again, we don't know, and he didn't tell us, so what's the answer? How much were they paying when he said the rich should pay their fair share? What were the top 5% paying of all the money that came in to the government? I'll tell you. Ready for this? The top 5% at the time he said that were already paying 67% of all the money that went into the government. The top 5% were paying. And he said, I'm going to make the rich pay their fair share. Should they pay 70%? 80%? I don't know. Should it be the 90%? These are debates and discussions that I think are fair to have. But wouldn't you want to know, as part of the discussion, as part of the claim, as part of the little slogan, if he said, currently the top 5% who are the rich are paying 67% of all money that come in, I think they should pay 70 or 80%. I would like to have known that. Instead of, I just want the rich to pay a fair share. You see the difference? When you vote for him, I think it should be based on an understanding of what he wants and why. Okay. 67% is not enough. Explain why. Okay, I like your explanation. It should be 98%. The top 5% should pay 100% and nobody else should pay taxes. I don't know, right? I mean, but whatever it is, give me a reason why. Let's discuss it. Let's debate this. This is what the country's about. But 67% is way more than we thought as a group was fair for 5% to be paying. What percentage does the bottom What percentage of people do not pay any income tax at all to the federal government? What percentage of workers? What percentage of workers pay 0 income tax in federal income tax and instead get money back?
Contract?
I would say.
1099?
Pay 0 in and get money back?
I would say
People file 1099 contractors?
Not necessarily, they pay, depends. Huh?
50%?
No idea.
50% of all wage earners pay 0 income tax and get money back. So somewhere in this top 50% of the top 50%, the top 5% of the 50% pays 67%. I'm gonna throw up with all these percentages, right? So you see how few people pay most of the money that goes into the federal government. Interesting, isn't it? Again, these are what you want to know. Does it help you make decisions as a critical thinker? It should. Having information should help you in your decision making. That's why vague terms are powerful and manipulating. So, this is a vague. What is fair? I don't know. It means something different to everybody. Who is rich? Is it 250,000? I'll tell you who's rich. It's very simple. The guy that makes more than you. If you're making $8.50 an hour, guess who's rich? Your boss that makes $10.50 an hour. Ah, my boss, if I just had that job. $10.50, I'd be rolling in the money on my bed, just cash everywhere. And then you make $10.50, you're like, shit, I'm broke as hell. But if I just made $12.50 like my boss does now, oh, I'd be rolling in the dough. And then pretty soon you make that and you're like, damn it, I'm still broke. And if I just made $15 an hour, and so on and so on, $60,000 a year, $100,000 a year. You make $100,000 a year and you go, I knew I'd be rich here, and then you get there and you go, no, I'm not rich, damn it. But my boss, who's making $200, that's rich. And then you make $200 and you go, damn it, I'm not rich. But if I were just making $500, it's always the next guy that's rich.
So the millionaires and billionaires.
And so the beauty of this is when you heard him say, I'm going to make the rich pay their fair share, who did you think was going to pay? Everybody but you. Everybody thought the same thing. I'm making $250,000 a year. That son of a bitch that's making $500 is going to be paying, but not me. That's the beauty of it. We all see the other guy as rich. At some point, I mean, you know, Trump says, I make $9 billion, I'm rich. But most people, you're talking about the 1% that are going to say they're rich. The 5%, they don't think they're rich. Absolutely not. I would never put myself in the category of a rich person. But I, from time to time in my life, have been easily up in the top 5%. Never have I considered myself rich. Hardworking. Providing for people in my family, yeah.
Was wondering, like, on the 5%, or people with, at a certain amount, don't they, like, you get a lot more,
Tax breaks.
yes. So.
It depends. See, the tax code, and I don't want to get into too deep down and dirty the tax code. The tax code is generated by the government to control our behaviors. So what they do is they want to promote certain behaviors by giving you benefits for it, and they want to have a detriment on certain behaviors by giving you tax penalties, in a sense, for it. So they want you to get married. So what do? They give you a benefit for being married. They want you to have kids. They give you a benefit for having kids. They don't want you to smoke, so you have smoking tax. And so you have all these different things where they tax behaviors they don't want, and they give you credits for things that they do want you to do. They use the tax code to manipulate and drive our behaviors. So they become, and to pay back their cronies and their buddies. So the tax code becomes very complicated. The tax code is thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of bullshit that's out there to manipulate us. And so what happens is people take all these little things, and they try to find ways to manipulate, and well, if I go here, then I back up, and I come over here, and I go this way, and then I can get around. And that it's set up for that because they want to try to manipulate our behavior, and in doing so, you create the ability for people to do that. So that's one of the things that you got to remember when a politician says, well, right now we're getting X amount of money from the people. If we just raise the taxes, what are we going to get? More money, right? All politicians think that, don't they? And then what, if we need more, all we have to do is just raise the taxes again and we'll get more. And then what we'll do is, if we need more than that, what do? Just raise taxes again. What's wrong with that theory? You guys don't know anything wrong with that theory? Here's what's wrong with that theory. It doesn't work. No different than if you own a restaurant and you say, I'm selling burgers at $2 each, and I made $1 million last year. I'd like to make $2 million next year. I just double my burger price to $4. Double the burgers, I'll make twice as much. In fact, I'm going to buy a house based on the fact that I'm going to be making $2 million next year. You know what? Why go small? I want to make $4 million. I'll just charge $6 or $8 a burger. Then I could just make $8 million, $4 million, right? Does it work that way?
No.
People buy less burgers. They go, you know what, I'm gonna have a burrito instead. Whoa, wait, what? I sold less burgers, I actually made less money by increasing the price. It's that sweet spot. Businesses raise things too high, and what happens? They actually make less money by having things too expensive. Same thing with taxation. You raise taxes too high, and you actually get less money into the government. Because what happens is, businesses say, F that, I'm just not going to hire anybody, I don't have any money to pay. You have less people working, the less people work, the more people are on welfare, that take money, less people making money, and then all of a sudden less people are paying in. It's a very complex thing, taxation. What are rich people going to do when you raise their taxes? What did Apple do? What did they do with all their money? Took it offshore. Remember when Trump was running, he said, I'm going to bring the money back. Apple took all their money offshore. A bunch of companies just said, no, all my money's over in Europe. Just won't get taxed. Rich people would just take their money and put it somewhere else. But we'll just raise the taxes. Okay, I just won't pay it then. Well, wait, you can't do that. Yeah, I can. I'm rich. So it's a delicate balance. You want to make it low enough that they're going to pay it, but high enough that you can get, it's the dance. Okay. Vague claims are claims that have no meaning. Vague claims are claims that have non-specific meaning. What is rich? I don't know. At what penny do you become rich? Is it $249,999.99? You're not rich? And then that one penny, and all of a sudden, woohoo, we're living the good life because you make a penny more? That's absurd, right? So at what point do you become rich? I don't know. I can't define it. Bald. I don't want to date somebody who's bald. Okay, I'm going to set you up with somebody. Okay, good. Just make sure it's not bald. No problem. Meet Steve. Steve walks in. Steve has no hair on the top of his head. And you go, what the hell? I told you if you're going to set me up with somebody, not somebody bald. And you go, dude, he's got a ton of hair around the back and side of his head. What does bald mean? I don't know. Is bald like people who have that real sexy receding thing? Is it the ones that have the little yarmulke patch thing in the top, Is that it? At what point do you become bald? What hair makes you bald? I don't know. We all know what bald is until you say define it. I can't. You can't define it, can you? No. Somebody shows up, no hair at all on top of their head, and they go, no, I've got great eyebrows. It's impossible to define, but we all think we know what it means. These are words where we use all the time, and we all go, oh yeah, I know what that means. And you say define it, and you go, I can't. I don't know what rich is. He's tall. What does it mean to be tall? I don't know. Taller than me? Is 7 feet tall? If you're 8 feet, you go, nah, not really, not yet. Is 6 feet tall? I don't know. It just depends, right? What's tall? At what inch are you tall? I want to set you up with somebody. Okay, make sure she's not too skinny. What's too skinny? What's too fat? What's fat to one person is not quite big enough to the next. So these terms, tall, fat, skinny, old, don't set me up with anybody that's too old. What is too old? I don't know. It depends on how old you are. An 80-year-old might not be too old for somebody who's 90. Right? So these are terms that we think have meaning, but in reality, when you have to define them, they're difficult to define. In fact, virtually impossible to pin down. So they're terms and phrases that generally have meaning, but not specific meaning. They're fuzzy on the edges. Okay? Indistinct, imprecise meanings. So when we make claims, and when other people make claims, be careful of words or phrases that are vague. Because when we're assessing credibility of claims with soundness, how do you assess whether it's true? If you say, he's old, he's rich, he's tall. How do you know if that's true or false? When it's a vague term, right? It's impossible to judge those things. So that's vagueness. Let's talk real quick, and we're going to have to go quick because you guys have sent me on too many tangents today. Notice how I blame you?
No.
It's called blaming the victim, because you guys have been a victim today, sorry. Let's talk about ambiguity. Ambiguity is different from vagueness. Vagueness is when you have no specific, precise definition of terms or phrases. Ambiguity is when you have very specific definitions, but more than one. It's when you have more than one specific definition for a word or phrase, but you don't know which one is the right one. When you have more than one specific definition, either one could make sense, and you don't know which one it is. There's different types of ambiguities. You have semantic, you have syntactic, you have pronoun. I should spread these out, huh? And grouping. Okay, those are the types we're going to talk about, types of ambiguities. Ambiguities are when you have a word or a phrase that has more than one specific definition and you don't know which one it is, and it makes sense either way in the sentence, in the claim. Somebody makes a claim, a word or phrase can be interpreted more than one way, it makes sense either way, and it's a very specific definition. What is an example? An example would be, well, just right off the top. Balls. I just say balls, and some of you go, you said balls. Why? Because there's more than one meaning, right? How many times in your life have you been talking about something, you're like, well, you take the big balls, and you go, I can't believe I said that. You giggle a little bit, and you realize, yeah, it was silly what I just said. Why? Because it can be misunderstood. It can be taken more than one way. It makes sense in the sentence either way. That's an ambiguity. It's a silly one, but it's one that happens all the time in our regular conversations. So, let me give you some examples of semantic ambiguity. I could say, he doesn't like to use glasses. Is that claim containing anything that's ambiguous? Yes. What's ambiguous? Glasses. Why is it ambiguous? Because it can be interpreted more than one way, and it makes sense either way in the sentence, and they're very specific definitions. See how it's not vague? It's not, I don't know what glasses are. It's, no, I know what glasses are. They're either eyeglasses or
Sunglasses.
Drinking glass.
drinking glasses. Right? If you just heard the claim, he doesn't like to use glasses, is that true? Well, I don't know. Which glasses are you talking about? Right? You see how that's a claim that contains a phrase or a word that is ambiguous because it can be interpreted more than one way, and it specifically makes sense either way, and you don't know which one it is. It's semantic because the confusion is not caused by the sentence structure. The structure of the sentence doesn't make it confusing. It's a word or phrase. Number one, the sentence structure does not make it confusing. Number two, the way it's interpreted either way does not change the sentence structure. Why? Because let's say you're talking about these glasses. What type of a word would this be? It would be a noun. If you're talking about these types of glasses, what type of a word would it be? A noun. The sentence structure doesn't change in any way by your interpretation, right? So you have a situation where the sentence structure doesn't change, the sentence structure itself does not cause the confusion. The word or phrase that's ambiguous acts the same way in the sentence, and it can be interpreted more than one distinct way. So you have a semantic ambiguity. By the way, is this glass half full or half empty?
Pessimist or optimist?
That's what everyone says, right? Pessimist or optimist? There is an answer, by the way.
What is it?
And it doesn't have to do with your outlook, because the reality is there's times in our lives where we're damn pessimists, and there's times when we're optimists, because every single one of us is a little manic depressive, right? Don't we all have times in our lives? And so when they say, oh, you're manic depressive, yeah, we all are. Come on. Some people are much worse than others, but still, we all go through phases, ups and downs. And I'm a half full sort of guy, and there's times when I'm an empty glass sort of guy. Yes? What's the answer? Oh, you weren't going to go with the answer? You were going to ask something else?
Yeah.
Damn you. Just a minute. Just a minute. I'll get to your question. Let's finish this real quick. What's the answer?
Both.
Both.
It's just,
Isn't it completely full?
it's your perception.
No. If you have a glass and there's water in it halfway, the reality is
Half empty.
it's either half empty or half full, depending on the direction that it was going. Was it empty and you filled it, in which case it's half full. If it was full and you emptied it, it would be half empty. The answer is very specific, and the answer is it depends on the direction it's going. That's the answer. And why does that matter? It matters because that's the key, one of the many keys to life. Isn't that silly I would say that? It's one of the keys to life. In your life, it's not whether this glass is half full or half empty. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. It only matters the direction you're going.
Are you halfway there or did you?
Well, it doesn't even matter. If you're right here, are you screwed? No. If you started from zero and you're right there, the direction you're going is up. If you're right here, are you doing well?
No.
Not necessarily. If you were full and you're there, you're going the wrong direction in your life. The answer is it doesn't matter where you are in your life at all. It matters the direction you're going, because eventually you'll get there whatever direction you're going. You never are stagnant. You're either getting better in something or you're getting worse. Always in life. Always be getting better at whatever is important to you. Because if not, it's getting worse in your relationship, in your work, whatever it is. Okay, so there's my 2 cents for the day. So, next one. She's cold. What's ambiguous?
Cool.
Cold. What could it mean?
Cold-hearted.
Cold-hearted? She's physically cold?
She's dead.
Dead? Yeah, she's cold to the touch. There's 3 meanings. How about a 4th one? She's not very amorous. That could be another one, right? So distant, she's cold to the touch, not amorous. These are several very distinct meanings that cold could mean. You see how it could be more than 2 or 3 or 4, right? It could have several meanings. You don't know which one it is. Does it change the sentence structure? Well, if she's cold to the touch, it is an adjective describing her. If she's not very amorous, it's an adjective describing her. If she's feeling cold, it's an adjective describing how she feels and how, her. And so on. They're all adjectives. It acts the same way in the sentence. It doesn't change the sentence structure. The structure itself doesn't make it confusing or ambiguous. You have a semantic ambiguity. The running back through a block. Through?
Probably a
Block.
block.
It's actually,
Is it?
if you want to be honest about it, it's kind of through a block, right? For those who are not sports people, don't know what that means? You ever heard of, in football, you know what a running back is in football? And they can block people. It's called to throw a block. See, sports people, when guys sit around and start talking about other guys that are sweating, they get kind of weird and they don't, say normal things. But it means to throw a block, to block somebody. You throw a block at somebody. You throw your body in front of somebody to block them, to throw a block. So the running back threw a block. Could it mean that he threw his body and blocked, threw a block? Or could it mean that he saw on the field a block sitting there and he picked it up and went, yeah, bam, and nailed somebody? Kind of absurd, right? Doesn't matter. Unless the absurdity is to the point that it can't make sense at all. That's probably not to that level. If it's even absurd but could happen, then you're still falling in that category. So, he threw a block, could have thrown a block, or he could have thrown a block. So, in that case, threw is a verb, block is a noun, if he's throwing a block. Or if he's throwing a block, if he throws, it's a verb, his block. And then if he's throwing a block, wait a second, what is that?
No.
It's a noun. Why is that a noun?
It's an object, you're putting your arms up there? No.
Your arms are an object, but is the block an object?
In that case, it's a thing.
It's a thing. That's right. It's a barrier. A block is like a dam, a barrier, an obstacle. It's a thing. So it also would be a noun. It's an abstract thing, but it's a thing. Okay, so another semantic ambiguity. You guys see the pattern here, right? Okay. Syntactic ambiguity. Syntactic ambiguities are the type of ambiguities where you have a word or phrase that is ambiguous in the sentence, in the claim, because the sentence structure creates the ambiguity, or because the word or the phrase itself changes the sentence structure based on its interpretation. Wow, that's a long explanation. But it's the inverse of that one, basically. Ambiguity is either caused by the sentence structure, or the ambiguity itself, the interpretation, changes the sentence structure. So the ambiguity is either caused by the sentence structure, or the interpretation changes the sentence structure. The ambiguity is either caused by the sentence structure or the interpretation changes the sentence structure. And we have a thing in computers called syntax error. Anybody who's old enough to remember computers at the very beginning, where you go to the C prompt and you type in whatever code you had and you'd hit enter and it would go, oops, you screwed up, idiot. Syntax error. It means the format that you used was incorrect. That's how I remember it, because I'm old. But you can remember it however you want. I'm just sharing with you how I remember syntax error, syntactic ambiguity. The structure, the format is wrong. So with a syntactic ambiguity, you have things like flying planes can be dangerous. What's ambiguous about that? Flying planes. Why is it ambiguous? Because it means more than one thing. What are the more than one things it means? That was weird to say. I'm sorry?
Physically flying?
Flying the plane, so you're up in the plane, you're flying it. It could be dangerous to fly planes, right? Yeah, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Or if there's like something in your way, like a mountain. Or if you run out of gas, or a million other reasons why flying a plane can be dangerous.
Still,
Yeah. What's the other definition or interpretation?
Actual
Well,
plane.
Like the
Plane.
actual plane,
I'm sorry?
the actual plane flying.
Okay. Planes that are in the air flying can be dangerous,
yes.
especially if they're coming after you, right? It's a flying plane, it's dangerous. So if a plane in the air, what type of a word, if this is the plane that's flying in the air, what type of word is this?
Now,
It's describing the type of plane. It's not a blue plane, it's not a parked plane, it's a flying plane. It's a type of plane. It's a type of plane that's in the air, it's flying. It's an adjective. It's a flying plane. And so if that's the case, then what do you have here? It's a type of plane, right? Flying planes. What if you're actually flying the plane? Verb. And what is it? So depending on how you interpret it, do you see how the sentence structure changes? You have a adjective noun versus a verb noun. If this is an adjective noun, then you still need a verb in the sentence for it to work, right? So what is your verb if that's the case? For those who know? Be. Can be. And some of you are saying, damn it, I wish I would have paid attention in 5th grade when I was diagramming sentences. I thought, I'm done with this. I never have to worry about this again in my life. Until that idiot all of a sudden starts diagramming stuff on the board. Yeah, I know. And those of you who have English as a second language, I'm sorry. Because it gets a little more complicated, possibly. I understand.
I was thinking paper planes.
Okay? Does that differ in any way?
Still be,
A plane is a plane is a plane. Flying a plane can be dangerous. Right? Or flying plane, I mean either way. You could be the one throwing it, which would be flying the plane, or it could be the one getting hit by it, which would be, that's a flying plane. Either way, works the same way. Okay, what's another one? Syntactic ambiguity. I have a bunch of them. You would think I would know them off the top of my head, right? How about this one? Damn it, now I need to move my pronoun again. The farmer saw the cow with binoculars.
Cow? Cow or cat?
You're an A.
The farmer saw. The
The farmer saw the cow with binoculars.
Cow with binoculars.
So what makes it confusing? What's the two interpretations?
That he saw it using binoculars and he saw a cow actually using binoculars.
Yeah, who's got the binoculars, right? The farmer's got the binoculars and he saw the cow? Oh, look, it's a cow. Or is it a farmer looking and the cow's got the binoculars dangling around his neck and the cow's going, oh, and he's running away. That's how cows run. Ah! And the farmer's going, get back here with my binoculars. Either one could make sense. So is there a word or a phrase that's ambiguous about that? Not really. What makes it ambiguous? The sentence structure. So it's, if you think about it, you have a prepositional phrase with binoculars that could be applied to either the object of the sentence or the subject of the sentence, right? The prepositional phrase could either be applied to the farmer or the cow. The farmer with binoculars saw the cow, or the farmer saw the cow who had binoculars. You'd have to change the sentence structure to make it so it's not ambiguous. The structure of the sentence itself makes it ambiguous based on how it's set up, how the words are set up, and the way that they're set up. It could be interpreted more than one ways. So do you see how this is one where the sentence structure changes based on your interpretation, and this is one where the sentence structure itself makes it ambiguous, differing from that one over there, which isn't a sentence structure problem at all. Moving on. How about this one? There is someone in the bed next to me. Or should it be somebody? Either way. There's someone in the bed next to me. Is it ambiguous? What could it mean?
One or two beds.
Could mean one or two beds, right? You see that? If it's one bed, and there's someone in the bed next to me, she just rolled her eyes. Of course you would put a skirt on the person. Random happenstance. Or it could mean there is someone in the bed next to me. Right? So what do we have? We have a situation where next to me could be applied to either the bed or someone. Someone's next to me or the bed's next to me. See that? The sentence structure itself makes it ambiguous. How many of you did a little square thing with the little girl and the boy? Good job. Okay. How about this one? They are hunting dogs. Or is it they are hunting dogs?
Might be a comma in there
Or is it they are hunting dogs, or they are hunting dogs, or they are, I don't know, whatever. Gotta put the emphasis on a different syllable to get a different meaning.
There you go.
What's in two or more meanings?
Hunting.
What's ambiguous here? Hunting? Hunting is ambiguous. Why?
Are the dogs hunting or is someone hunting the dogs?
Oh, no, close.
Shit.
You're half right.
Are they hunting dogs? Or are the dogs hunting them?
No, that's what he said.
Type of dog, are they?
But you got a half right too. The same half that he got.
I'm confused.
You guys are high-fiving each other. What?
Type of dog, the hunting dog?
Yes. What type of dog is it? It's not a sitting dog, it's not a rooting dog, it's not a ratting dog, it's a hunting dog, right? So if that's the case, then what type of word is this? It's an adjective, it's a type of dog. What type of dog is it? It's a hunting dog. What's the other interpretation? The one that you said. Someone's hunting the dog. If that's the case, then what type of word is this? Verb. So we either have, this is an action that you're hunting the dogs, or the type of dog is a hunting dog, where they, that's a pointing, pointer. Ever been out hunting with a dog?
Yeah, I've seen those dogs.
Oh,
They're freaking crazy.
oh, do they go
No,
like this?
Yeah, they-
That's,
They go like this. It's pretty
I have to
cool.
put my head up like this?
It's pretty cool.
They are hunting dogs. So if it's the type of dog, wait, let me back up. So, verb or adjective, you see how the sentence structure changes by the interpretation, so you have a syntactic ambiguity. Next step. If this is hunting, adjective, the type of dogs, then what does this mean?
Say it again?
If this is the type of dog, then what does they mean? The dogs, right? The dogs are hunting dogs, right? Now we're talking about they as the dogs. Or if this is hunting, the act of shooting a dog, then who is they?
People.
What type of people?
Someone.
Hunters.
Hunters. Hunters people. Hunters are hunting dogs.
That's terrible grammar. Just for.
I know.
It's grammatically not sound.
I like it though. It does well explaining. So, if an ambiguity is a word or a phrase that can be interpreted in more than one way, and it makes sense in the sentence either way, then what is that? Isn't that an ambiguity? That can be interpreted more than one way and it makes sense either way in the sentence? Because it either could mean the hunters or the dogs. So what is it? Is it semantic? Is it syntactic? Or what? This is called a transition. I'm going to give you a hint. This is called a transition. Pronoun, did you say? It is a pronoun. Good job. It's a pronoun ambiguity because what is they? They is a pronoun. What is a pronoun? For those who don't remember, again from 4th grade. You're going, damn it, that was a long time ago. A pronoun is a word that we use to substitute for a noun, another noun, a proper noun. And you put a generic placeholder like he, or they, or it. Those are nouns that we don't want to repeat proper nouns over and over again. Instead of saying, Professor Kleven came in and Professor Kleven stood up in front of the class and Professor Kleven started to teach, you go, can't I just say he? Professor Kleven came in and he started teaching. Oh, okay, he is Professor Kleven. I know because you introduced him and then now you just used a pronoun from then forward. Well, what happens if you say, something where you don't know which pronoun it's applying to because it's a generic placeholder for a specific pronoun. So if you say Professor Kleven and Professor Stevens came in and he started teaching, wait a second, you've created an ambiguity because it could be Professor Kleven or Professor Stevens. So what do we have? We have a pronoun ambiguity. You see how that works? So this is an example of a pronoun ambiguity. A pronoun ambiguity is a pronoun that is used in a claim or word or a sentence that can be interpreted in more than one way, and it makes sense either way. I mean, you don't know that you need to write that down, but I mean, you got to understand that, right? Pronoun ambiguity, self-explanatory. So, I mean, to me, it's super simple. It makes he's back there going, oh my gosh. So, what's another one? This is one. What's another one? Well, actually, I'm going to do one over here in just a minute. So, how about this one? I was wondering why the Frisbee was getting bigger and then it hit me. Isn't that clever? Thank you. I try to make them fun so you guys aren't bored. Because some of the stuff can be boring. I was wondering why the Frisbee was getting bigger and then it hit me. What is that? It's a pronoun ambiguity. Why? Because of what word? It. What hit him? Me, you, whoever, whomever.
Frisbee or?
The Frisbee or?
Why you were wondering.
Yes, the realization. The realization hit me. Oh, that's why. Is that what hit you, or was it actually the Frisbee?
Both.
It was a rapper.
Well, if the Frisbee hit you, then it would be both, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be either the realization or the Frisbee. It's a pronoun ambiguity. It acts in the sentence as a pronoun, and it can be interpreted more than one way. And it makes sense either way in the sentence. Pronoun ambiguity. The father didn't want his son to use his baseball mitt. His. Why is his a pronoun ambiguity? Because it's a pronoun in the sentence that could be applied to either the father's mitt or the son's mitt, right? His mitt could be, don't you use your mitt, or don't you use my mitt. But either way, his baseball mitt could be either the son's baseball mitt or the father's baseball mitt. Or I guess it could be his brother's baseball mitt, or I don't know. Just some his out there. See how it's a pronoun and it can be interpreted more than one way. Steve and John and Sally were running down the street and they were laughing and having a good time, and he was giggling when he ran by me. Who was giggling? I don't know. It's a pronoun ambiguity. When we write, this is a common problem that we have. You'll be writing along, you'll introduce one person, you'll introduce someone else, and then all of a sudden you'll throw in a pronoun. And as a reader you go, what? How many times does this happen in real life? All the time, right? You're talking to somebody and they go, oh, and then they get done and you go, just a second, was that Cindy or Sally that you were talking about? Doesn't that happen all the time to you? It does to me all the time. It also, yeah, I was just going to say, it also creates arguments. You know how many times in my life I've gotten in an argument over an ambiguity? What? Why are you saying that? Do you think, no, and that's not what I meant. And we use ambiguities and somebody interprets them wrong, and then you get in an argument with your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse or brother or sister or whatever over just a simple misunderstanding of a pronoun or a semantic or syntactic ambiguity. Because we aren't clear. We use shortcuts all the time, and we're getting lazier and lazier with our communications and our words, especially with texting.
Or sometimes you do it on purpose.
Sometimes on purpose to create the ambiguity. Yeah, absolutely. One time I told my mom, she said, I don't want you going to visit Jennifer, she's bad news. She was right. But, so I said, okay, fine. So I left, went out of the house, got my car, drove over to the mall, went through the parking lot, went out the other side of the parking lot, went over to Jennifer's house. Hung out for a few hours, played Scrabble. Came back home, and my mom said, where were you?
Went to the mall.
At the mall. I went to the mall. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's so bad. Is it a lie?
No.
It's a half-truth.
In the law, we have this thing called tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You know why?
We want
Because-
all of it.
Because half-truths are lies. Did I lie to my mother? The answer is, I did. You know why? Even though technically what I did was accurate, it still was a lie. And the reason why is because lying has a definition. What's the definition of lying?
Not telling the whole truth.
When you don't admit stuff, right?
And it's not telling the whole truth, and it's not when you omit stuff, because sometimes you can still be telling the truth. A lie is very specific.
When you're not being honest about something.
Not always, because sometimes, I mean, yes, possibly, because you're building into that. What I think you may be saying the same thing, just not in the same way. A lie is when you say something with the intent to deceive. And you can tell the truth about something with the intent to deceive somebody. You can use the whole truth sometimes with the intent to deceive them. If you know that they're going to take it a different way or throw them off from a different direction of course of inquiry. And in law, this happens all the time. The definition of lying is when you make a statement or claim with the intent to deceive. It doesn't matter whether the statement was true. If the intent was to deceive, it's still a lie. All right. So let me give you this one. Bear left at the zoo.
What? Okay, are you turning left or is there a damn bear?
That's right. That's right. It's either the rar animal. That's a bear. It's a lot like a cow, apparently. But the animal, bear left at the zoo. Or it could be turn left at the zoo. Bearing is veering to bear left. For those who don't know, that's a word that means to veer,
Is it
turn.
spelled the same way?
It is. I know.
This is confusing. I quit.
I know.
I'm out of here.
Damn English language.
I'm out of here.
So if we're saying turn left, then what is this? A verb. And what is left? A direction, which is a,
Adjective, is it?
it's a noun.
Is that person, please?
Left versus right. Turn left. It's a thing. It's a direction. It's a direction of travel.
Isn't it an action word? Is an action word a noun?
Oh, no, an action word is not. An action word is a verb. Person, place, or thing is a noun. That's a thing.
It depends on how you're using it, right?
That's right, because it could be a verb if this were a noun, meaning the rar,
Listen,
bear.
I'm out here.
I'll follow me on this one. If this is the bear and you're leaving it, the past tense of leave is left.
Left.
He left, which is a verb, so it's either the bear was left or you're going to turn left. Noun verb or verb noun. Bear left or bear left. The sentence structure changes based on the interpretation, so what do you have? Syntactic ambiguity. What if the sentence went on and said, bear left at the zoo next to the chicks?
You don't have any bullets left in that gun. Bear left at the zoo next to the chicks. Are we talking about females, which is kind of, I don't like that, or chickens?
I don't like that. I'm very disappointed in you. So yeah, we're talking about either the chirp chirp or the ba ba boom, right? Either way, it makes sense in the sentence, right? And what type of a word is this if it's the girls?
It's a noun.
Noun. What type of a word is it if it's the birds? Noun. So what type of an ambiguity is this right here? Semantic ambiguity. So we have one where we have a syntactic and a semantic ambiguity in the same sentence to complicate things. What happens when you have one that has a semantic and syntactic ambiguity in it?
Grouping.
No, wouldn't that be nice if it was just a transition? Oh, that was brilliant though, huh? Good job, but no. You have a syntactic ambiguity because the semantic ambiguity doesn't in any way change the fact that you have a sentence structure problem. Ultimately, syntactic ambiguity always wins. It trumps in those cases because the sentence structure is still a problem with it. It doesn't fix the sentence structure problem. You just happen to have a semantic ambiguity in a syntactic ambiguity sentence. Yes? Yes?
How many of those examples are semantic?
Are semantic? These over here are semantic.
Yeah, I know, but.
These under here are syntactic.
But how many of those are both of them?
Just this one.
Just that one?
Yeah. All right, let's go over to grouping real quick. Grouping ambiguity is whenever you have,
All three.
no,
Oh.
an ambiguity caused by typically numbers. How you group things, how you group numbers, how you define numbers and things. So you could say,
Is an ambiguity caused by numbers, you said?
caused by grouping.
Caused by.
Caused by grouping. I mean, it's grouping ambiguity. It's kind of, it's better explained through examples than it is. The way things are grouped causes ambiguity. It could be several different ways, typically with numbers. 18 people have slept in this room since the hotel opened. Is that a claim? Yes. Can it be interpreted more than one way?
Yes.
Yes. It depends on how you group the 18 people sleeping in the room. It could be 18 people have slept in the room at one time, or it could be 18 people have slept in the room separately over different days. Depends on how you group it, right? Yes?
Is there a semantic ambiguity in there too, because of slept?
You're talking about like slept and sexual?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what room are we talking about? Are you talking about?
But
room?
have slept, it's not really slept. What do we say when you're talking sex?
But isn't that the past tense stuff?
Yeah, but what do we say? It's not just slept,
Together.
with, slept with. With has to be with it, right? He slept. You wouldn't think, oh, right. Slept with, you go, oh, right. There's a difference. So while, yeah, I see what you're saying, I'm just saying, I don't know that you would cause confusion. Would you think 18 people slept together without saying slept with or together? I don't think anybody would confuse that. Even though that word sometimes is used with together, or you have to combine something with it to create the confusion. I don't think there's a confusion there. That's a great point though, yes.
The first thing that came to mind, I don't know if it's because of the second language, is because I was thinking slept, I'm thinking they could have stayed in the room and not have slept.
Yeah, that's true too. That works fine.
Well, what room? Are we talking about room at the hotel? What room?
Yeah, the room at the hotel.
Slept in the room since the hotel opened.
Mhm.
In this room? Oh,
Mhm.
there you go, okay. That's the part I missed.
Oh, I see. I didn't know what you meant by,
Gotcha.
yeah, in this room,
This-
since hotel roll. So the ambiguity is, we mean all at once, one at a time, two at a time? It depends on how you group the numbers. It's a grouping problem, a grouping ambiguity. Another one, you could say, CEOs make more money than executive assistants. By the way, that's code for what? What we used to call secretaries, but now we call them executive assistants. It's kind of a cooler phrase anyway, isn't it? CEOs make more money than executive assistants. True or false? True and false. It's both. Depends on how you interpret it, right? It depends on how you group it. Are you talking about the average CEO makes more than the average executive assistant? True. Are you talking about all CEOs added up make more than all secretaries or executive assistants' salaries added up? False. Secretaries added up make way more than all the CEOs because there's way more of them. Depends on how it's grouped. It's both true and false. How about this one? Some months, want me to write it? Some months have 31 days. Some have 30 days. How many have 28 days?
One,
They all do.
like this, dude.
All of them.
Some people say one, some people say all of them. What's the correct answer?
No.
They're both correct. That's why it's a fun little thing, right? It's the type of thing you can say to somebody, and no matter what they say, they're wrong. Because it's ambiguous and it can be interpreted more than one way. That's why it's a fun little clever riddle, because if they say one, then you go, ha, all of them, ha, you're so stupid. I'm smart, you're stupid. Or if they say all of them, you go, no, only one of them has 28 days. You're so stupid and I'm so smart. No matter what, they're wrong because it can be interpreted more than one way depending on how it's grouped. Do you mean only 28 days? Or do you mean at least 28 days? It depends. I didn't say either. I just said 28. If I meant only 28, then the answer is 1. If I meant at least 28, then the answer is all of them. It's a grouping ambiguity. Yes?
Can you also do that, like if you name people and then you say like they went to this place? So can that mean like if they all went together or if they all went individually?
Well, then you'd have a blend of Grouping and pronoun. Who's they?
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, you,
So that would be a blend of group, it would be both grouping as well as pronoun, because you don't know which one it is. Okay, last things I want to talk about real quick. Division and composition. Division and composition. These are fallacies. The fallacy of division and composition. What is a fallacy?
False.
Not always. That's how we kind of think of it though, don't we? We think, oh, it's a fallacy, it's wrong, it's bad, it's false. But it's not. Fallacies mean that we came at the answer the wrong way. It's an error in reasoning. A fallacy is an error in reasoning.
You looked at it the wrong way?
You came to the conclusion the wrong way. It's an error in reasoning. Let's say somebody says, oh, Steve, there's a criminal. And you say, well, why do you think Steve's a criminal? Well, because he's Mexican. And you go, what? No, you can't. You see how that it's an error in reasoning. Just because he's Mexican doesn't make him a criminal. But what if he is a criminal? Just got out of prison for doing 20 years and for his 5th time in prison. Is he a criminal?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you only drew that conclusion.
But you drew the conclusion the wrong way. So it's not that you're false with your conclusion, it's that you came about it the wrong way. Fallacy is coming up with the conclusion the wrong way. So here's an example, 2 examples of fallacies. One is the fallacy of division, and the other is a fallacy of composition. Fallacy of division is when you take a group of things and you take a trait or characteristic of a group and you assume that the individual things within the group have the same characteristic or traits. You take a group, characteristic or traits of a group, and assume that the individuals within that group also have the same characteristics or traits. Composition is just the opposite. You take an individual's traits or characteristics and you assume that the group that he's in or she's in or that it is in have the same characteristics or traits. Would you like some examples? Stereotyping is exactly what we're talking about as one example. Stereotyping. Group. Here's some stereotypes. Asians. Asians are short, smart, funny, I don't know. What are Asians? Stereotypically. Whatever the characteristic or traits. Steve is Asian, therefore he's short, smart, funny. No, Steve may be tall, dumb, and boring. See how that works? Just because a group of things or people may have a certain characteristics or traits that are common amongst them. Basketball players are tall. Steve's a basketball player, therefore he's tall. No, not necessarily. See the fallacy? It doesn't have to be people. It could be things. You could say the group of things. Let's say BMWs are made up of a bunch of parts, right? They're expensive. Therefore, the spark plugs in the BMW must be expensive. Not necessarily. The other way around. Spark plugs, this is the most expensive part, spark plug. Therefore, the car that it goes in must be the most expensive car. Just a second. You could say, Kobe Bryant's the best basketball player. Therefore, the Lakers must be the best team. Right? Yes.
So is it kind of like prejudice?
That prejudice, bias, racism, all that stuff fits into these categories, yes. Those are the fallacies. It doesn't have to be that. Like I said, it could be things. You could say, a brick is made up of atoms, and a brick is heavy. Therefore, each atom must be heavy. No. That's a fallacy. So it doesn't have to be people. It can be things. It can be people. It can be, other ideas like that. So those are the two fallacies that I wanted to introduce to you real quick that are often used. So we crammed in just the last little bit there. Any questions about any of this?